out to the World Wide Web. Very exciting. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are today. G'day and welcome to the A Good Life show, where every week we interview extraordinary people and share their life lessons, their wisdom, their... Oh, okay, I'm getting some feedback. Let's move. Shut that down. Right. Sorry about that. There's the feedback from Facebook. Yeah, so back to what I was saying. Good day and welcome to a Good Life show, where every week we interview extraordinary people and share their life lessons, wisdom, and life transforming aha moments that inspired them to go on and create careers, businesses, and projects to serve humanity and help us all live a good life. I'm your host, Justin Phillips. I'm a life hacker, wellness coach, global leader in cellular health technologies, and there is nothing I like better than to empower people to live a good life. We have two special guests today. We have the amazing Chris Henderson, and also we have Cyril Burke back from last week to pitch in on today's conversation. And Chris Henderson has been on the Sunshine Coast for almost 30 years as a local. He's experienced many health challenges when training to be a teacher in his late teens. He was diagnosed with two serious autoimmune conditions, and he was determined to find some alternatives to the mainstream medicine to complement his standard of care. And this journey took him into health retreats and biological dentists, discovering energetic medicine and practicing vegan, all the way to paleo diet principles to recover his health. Chris is a qualified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. He coaches clients through diet and stress reduction principles, including how their exposures to light, both natural and artificial light, affects the body, natural hormones, and the circadian rhythms. So Chris is an expert in the area of light. So thank you so much for coming on the call today, Chris. And the amazing Cyril Burke is an expert, certainly in my opinion, of EMFs. He's very humble. He doesn't like me to say he's one of Australia's world experts, or top experts, but I think he is. And we had a great interview with Cyril last week, which was really just a bite-sized piece of starting to learn about what's possible. And there's a whole bunch of resources where you can connect with Cyril, and even books where you can really start to get educated on the EMF side of things. But today, we're really talking about how blue light could be killing your sleep and some of the impacts of that. They're quite far-reaching impacts. A lot of people are not aware of this issue. Sleep disturbance is a massive problem. I was just talking to a team member, and she was saying 80% of the people she knows are experiencing sleep problems. So, great topic. So thank you very much for coming on the call, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having us again, Justin.
Cyril Cyril was just telling us about his fancy new clothing he's wearing. Totally EMF blocking. I love it. Yeah, don't see him do a disco dance very often.
There you go.
Oh,
there you go.
Wow.
Ninja.
Wow. He is EMF blocked. Great, Cyril. Fantastic. So, yeah. All right. Well, let's go into Chris's conversation particularly. Now, this is where I really love people to sort of connect with the humanitarian story behind the people that I interview, because if we can understand what's going on and how people got to the point in their life where they're contributing back to humanity, I hope that empowers and inspires other people to make changes. By the way, Chris, for some reason you're coming up as Sarah Henderson on the Zoom, so you are. I'll change that name in a second.
I had to switch my Macs. It's my mother's Mac.
Okay, no worries. I'll fix that in a second.
Oh,
but that caused me some confusion. Sorry for muting you there. All right. So, Chris, I'd love to start the show with a bit of background. So, can you please share with us some of your backstory, context around the challenges that you lived through to come to a place of your realizations, your aha moments that changed the direction of your life?
Yeah, for sure. Like my life, well, I'll go back to, I basically emigrated to the Sunshine Coast when I was 10 years old, lived a idyllic, teenage lifestyle, surfing, playing basketball at a high level, and loving life and getting out in the sun and being very healthy. After I graduated high school, I went back to the UK to do university. And it was really interesting because when you live in Queensland for 10 years and you go back to the northeast of the UK, northeast of England, into a dearth of a winter, and then go and work shift work for a year and then go to uni and getting up in the dark in the middle of the night and coming home, I didn't even realize that was affecting me. But I was there for about 12 months and then was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is a very aggressive inflammatory bowel disease or autoimmune disease. And I just came home. I said, I'm not staying here with this, and came home and went down the traditional routes, with doctors and medications, which were making me feel terrible. And, my head was really bad, just mental health. So I started to look for alternatives and came across a friend of mine who had been involved with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and got information about them having health retreats that you could go to in the wild and woolly Lismore, northern New South Wales. So I tripped off up to one of these health retreats when I was 18 years old, and my dad dropped me off. He said, I don't want to leave you here. I'm not leaving you on this goat track. But I was so committed to learning something outside the box that I did the 10 days with juice fasting, brought home all the vegan books, restarted uni, but this vegan diet wasn't really helping me. I had my mercury fillings taken out at the same time, and then sort of relapsed into a full-blown situation where I actually needed surgery when I was 21. Basically, to save my life, I needed to have a fair chunk of my bowel taken out to actually save my life, which was such a huge thing for a 21-year-old, waking up with a bag on my side and wondering how life is going to sort of work out after that. So
yeah. And what condition was that, Chris?
Pardon?
And what condition was that?
Crohn's disease.
The health challenge.
Crohn's
Disease, yeah.
Yeah, so off of Crohn's, and then had the surgery. Surgery was good, and yeah, when you get those parts taken out, I regenerated very well, and went on to just start my career in sales and marketing and insurance. And I had some vaccinations to go to Africa when I was 26 and had anaphylactic shock pretty much within 5 to 10 minutes of having those vaccines, which again was like another U-turn moment, and basically rendered me incapacitated, and I couldn't work in that environment, this office environment, Wi-Fi, blue light, etc., and had to look at a different way of living. And I've always been intrigued in terms of alternative health, as I wouldn't have been up in Kyogle at 18 years old. So went down that route of studying nutrition and studying biochemical pathways and looking at my own genetics and things of that nature. So that got me off on the launching pad into this.
Yeah.
So that was the U-turn moment. That was in 2010, where I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't get to work. I just finished a traineeship in insurance broking. I was about to buy into a massive chunk of a portfolio, and like your story, you get so much ripped away from you, and you're sort of trying to rebuild again. And I've rebuilt, but these things are obviously pain points that we're trying to turn into positive, purpose points, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I love people to get. That so often a challenge can be an opportunity for change. It can completely change the course of the direction of your life, and it can be so much for the better if you choose to make it that way. Leave the pain in the past, but keep the motivation and inspiration. So the health challenge was at 21, major surgery, really debilitated from health challenges. So started heading in the direction of being self-empowered and self-educated around health. And then, so what happened then? What became your calling or your mission, if you like, that came from these realizations of just how important, your health is your wealth. Even when you do lose all your monetary wealth, your health is still the foundation. So you're rebuilding that. And yeah, so what did your calling look like into moving into the health career?
So I'd been under a lot of naturopaths over a 10-year period and realized, all this testing they were doing is something I'd like to do. And I did study in that realm and then start to work with a clinical nutritionist and seeing clients. So thinking that was like the perfect gig, right? I work on yourself and work with other people. I did that for a couple of years and found that you need a lot more skill in just working on yourself to work with other people. You start to take on a lot of their baggage and a lot of their own stresses, making you stressed out. So, I still enjoyed that, but I was still digging and still looking. always looking for new information and ways to improve. And the main thing that changed me into this light aspect was I came across some information from a friend of mine when I was asking about EMFs and light, and he put me in the direction of Dr. Jack Cruz, who's a neurosurgeon, who's basically a quantum ideas man. And I watched some of his talks and I thought, I'm really missing a trick. This is so important, like to this whole metabolic testing we're doing and nutrition that we're talking about. Like we're giving clients this nutrition and lifestyle programs, but they're still not getting better. Like, is this a missing piece? And again, I started to play around with myself as a guinea pig. And I had prescription glasses at the time because when I was working in an office, I lost my eyesight within about 6 months, like all this blue light, fluorescent lighting, LED screens, which we'll discuss why that happens later. And I had these prescription glasses. My eyes were getting worse. And Jack said, look, easy prescription, go and watch sunrises in the morning and use, blocking glasses at night to mitigate any blue light damage to your eyes, oxidative damage. So I did that for like 6 weeks, 2 months, and I could see again. I didn't have to do any eye exercises. And I said, right, I'm getting off tablets. I'm not reading tablets. I'm going to buy physical, hard copy books, changing my behaviors, right?
Yeah.
And also learning those little tweaks. I had a client of mine was referred to me by a functional diagnostic specialist in the UK who had Crohn's disease, a client in Sydney. And I thought, well, let's chat to this client and see if we can actually incorporate some of these new learnings into his protocol. And we did, and Cyril was involved. Cyril was consulting with him with the EMF. I said, let's look at EMF first, and let's look at lighting and light and blue light mitigation. When we did that, and he really improved. So that was like, wow, okay, this is powerful. I need to start going deeper into this to see how I can, influence clients this way. And I was looking for the best products on the market, testing all these different products, all these different, on myself and then clients. And then I came across a company. I really wanted to find someone who was building lighting because that's a major exposure. We can mitigate, but you've got all this fluorescent lighting, this compact fluorescent, these LEDs. And I searched for a couple of years and found Daniel Ebbett in New Zealand, who's building downlights and bulbs. And we're partnering on, building better lighting now. And also I'm involved with a project in America with a contemporary of a particularly significant person who I'll mention in my slides with light therapy, right? So this light therapy and light is exploding, especially in North America. And we're on the tip of the iceberg here, but there's some very significant things that have actually come out of Australia, which I'll talk to maybe next week. We might go into it next week, but that's where I'm at now. So there's a whole crazy 20
very
years
exciting
stuff. Yeah.
And forgot to mention that at the start of the call, because prior to this call, you and I have spent some time together and looked at so much of the content that we want to share, and we realized, holy cow, we're going to need another part. We're going to need a part 2 just on the light side of things, particularly vitamin D, and then the artificial light, like how to mitigate that and what are the solutions that are available to us today, which you're heavily involved with bringing to Australia. Okay, so great, fantastic. So what's the main problem that you solve for your clients? Obviously that they come in with health challenges, and when you started mitigating EMF and then solving the blue light and artificial light issue with your clients, you started to see a fairly significant shift in the health outcomes, right? You want to talk to us,
Well, for sure. It depends. Like if we talk about my clients autoimmune related, so that's a big rabbit hole. But the most common denominator is sleep, like Cyril said last week. If you can sleep better, you can recover better. It's pretty point blank underlying. Just put a line under it. And by looking at EMF and light, especially in the sleeping space and before dark, you solve a lot of those problems flat out. So, I mean, you also, I have to educate people on getting more natural light, like getting out and looking at sunrises and getting a bit of UV, because, we're in Queensland and the powers that be have scared the hell out of people in terms of UV and melanoma, which we can probably go into next week. So it's slowly trying to actually say, hey, you can expose yourself, build up a resilience, and even if you're fair skinned, you can build up a solar callus and get more UV light. And it's really important to know or understand that the sun is 40 to 50% red and near infrared light. So that whole part of the spectrum is so healing. And we're spending 90% of our time under blue light only. I mean, there's a miscalculation there, right? So
Yeah.
trying to come back to get some balance there is what I try to lead people down that pathway.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, look, this sounds like a good time to lead into some of your slides. I know you've got a bunch of information there to help educate people on the importance of light and the dangers of artificial light, and then looking at vitamin D and circadian rhythms and melatonin and all sorts of stuff. So would you like to share with us some of your presentation?
Sure. Have you gonna enable me to do that? Do I have to?
That's a good question. There you go. You're a co-host now. Thanks for
Sure,
asking.
that's all right. Let me have a look at this desktop.
What did you say to me yesterday? There was a comment where living a nocturnal life where...
Sorry, we're diurnal animals living nocturnal existence.
Yeah,
So
meaning that our natural state is to live in sunlight in one state, and then to live in the darkness in a different state. But nearly all modern civilized people, humans on the planet today, because they're in artificial light, or their light's being filtered by glass, they've got tablets and computers and so forth, we're living under nocturnal conditions even when it's daylight, and we're just not getting that balance of day and light.
That's right. So you're basically living like a cat, but there's a big problem with that, which I'll explain. Mate, I can't seem to share from my computer. Is it possible that you pull the slides up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry,
that's why we've got a backup. That's always a good thing.
Plan B, and I'll just you can scroll through for me.
Yeah. So I know I did back that up. Where it is? Here it is. Sorry, wrong one. Just starting. Had the download open, sorry, not the actual presentation, but here it comes. Oh, it couldn't be open because I don't have permission to view it. Oh, that's always interesting. That's fun. Here we go. It's open now, thankfully. Just tell us when you want me to...
Yes, mate. Excellent. Right.
See that okay?
Yeah, that's cool.
Brilliant.
So if we go, first slide would be great.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. So this is what I try to teach people that, and as a follow-on from what Cyril was talking about. Cyril was talking about last week about EMF, electromagnetic fields, man-made electromagnetic fields affect us because we are a conduit for them. We're a bag of salt water, basically. We all know that in the redox world. So basically, natural sunlight and frequencies from the Earth, the sun, the moon, we're conduits for those as well. We've basically got receptors on our body for these very important frequencies, including light that you can see, visible light, but also the invisible forms of radiation like UV and infrared, far infrared, near infrared. And this is a really interesting quote by Dr. Alexander Wunsch. So 1/3 of the energy your body consumes from the food you eat, and the vast majority of the energy that your body needs to maintain that balance comes from environmental infrared light. Well, what did I say before? The sun is 42% red and near infrared light. So we've got to connect back into these natural frequencies. So block what Cyril was talking about last week, and then connect into the frequencies that we've been evolving under or we're living under for millennia. Next. You're like you're the surgeon. Next. Okay, Dr. Robecker is a really interesting researcher. Cyril might have mentioned him last week, but he identified that in our cell membrane, we have the DHA, which is the fatty membrane, and that actually takes light and creates a current or a DC electric current that drives the energy production process and the healing process. And it works like a battery, right? but you've got to make sure that that battery or inside the cell you have enough cellular, coherent cellular water, minerals, etc. And the EMFs that Cyril was talking about last week dehydrate that cellular battery, basically robbing you of energy. So we need more natural, as I said, natural frequencies, blocking the non-native ones and more natural ones to charge that cellular system in our body. Next. So this is Fritz Popp, and he was a really interesting fellow. They designed a biophotonic camera, so a camera that would pick up biophotons or light emissions, and he found that we emit light. We emit very low level UV light, and also they've done tests on plants and actually dying animals as well. When the animal is dying or dead, it'll emit this field of light over the 24, 48 hour period. So slowly emit this light, right? So my question, is that like the soul? Are we like the light force going back? So this is a camera that's probably millions of dollars worth. And he theorized that basically these fields play an important role to biological systems. So we've got Cyril's expert in this electromagnetic fields of the body. Actually, how does that field interact with all these other natural emissions from light, UV, infrared? And there's definitely something to it. And they found out by verifying that with the camera. Next.
Sorry.
Cool. This is interesting too. This is a red blood cell and a plant cell. They look very similar in structure, right? Mm. One's filled with iron and one's filled with magnesium. One makes it green and one's red. So basically, we are basically have a system, a cellular system and a melanin system in our body to absorb all of that electromagnetic frequency. So plants will pick up a certain range of the frequency. We absorb the entire frequency of light. So we need adequate sun exposure to basically build that body battery, but also create that melanin in the skin, which acts both as a transceiver and a sunscreen. So what do we find today? You know, we've got these messages of slip, slop, slap. Don't let the sun touch your DNA, da-da-da-da-da. We're going to be in real trouble. Well, we're already in real trouble, but this is public health messages that aren't helpful. Next. So light. So this is a slide showing how the different frequencies of light actually penetrate the body, and you'll see that blue light is penetrating below the blood vessels level, and the red near infrared goes right to that subcutaneous fat level, actually go right through you, like 10 to 30 centimeters. So that's red and near infrared that I was talking about, that is massive as a therapy now, because it's actually so penetratable into cells and aligned with nature. As I said, the sun is 42% red near infrared. So what we find is that there's actually the stuff that Einstein was talking about, where biological systems get charged, is because we have a crystalline structure to our cell water. It's like a crystal, acts like a laser. Would you believe it? The skin takes light and uses it like a laser, or converts it to a laser to build energy. So again, cool physics. Won't go into too much of it, but just understand that this is what's happening at the moment.
Yeah. In fact, as many of our viewers know, my father-in-law had a heart attack recently, and we've been doing further research, and Nicole found a whole bunch of research that was published in 2017 from multiple hospitals in Australia and universities in Australia around the benefits of red light, infrared and red light, reducing scarring from a heart attack by up to 78% post event. 78% reducing the scarring from the heart attack by simply using red light. It's phenomenal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And this is why. So we have light sensitive pigments in our eyes and on our skin. So in the eyes, non-visual, nothing to do with your sight, that pick up these frequencies and these basically wavelengths. And why is that's important? Because these wavelengths, or these activations of light, are tied to little clocks on all our organ systems. And this is actually what Yoss says, you know, like the chi cycle. Why is this happening? Because your body is tuned to pick up certain wavelengths of light at certain periods of the day to activate certain organ systems and hormone systems and organ function that's connected to the light. So again, I'll go back to the question, what are the types of light you're spending your time under? If you're in an office under blue light and Wi-Fi for 8 hours, it's going to be no good for these gene clocks.
Yeah.
Right?
8 hours? Who's under artificial light for only 8 hours a day?
Well, I guess I was thinking about when I was in the office. I mean, we're on the phone for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So it's important because we need specific light at specific times of the day, both to activate all these systems, but also to have this circadian rhythm kick in, right? So when the body releases certain hormones, like Cyril was mentioning it last week, in the morning, and when that blue light kicks in, UV light kicks in, you get the cortisol to wake you up, and then you want to be changing down to having melatonin excretion at night, and you can only really do that as the light environment changes, right? If we don't change our light environment, that melatonin won't kick in, or you'll actually start degrading your own melatonin, which is crazy because melatonin is so intrinsically linked to recovery. And you'll love this because melatonin runs the two cellular repair processes, which is autophagy and apoptosis. That's run by melatonin, right? And when you talk about the Australian research, there was some big research come out about dementia and Parkinson's, and using red light as a helmet, as a therapy, as a helmet therapy. And the reason why that's so effective, or the reason why there's such a big issue with those neurological diseases these days, is we need enough melatonin in our systems to be released at night for the brain to reduce in size to do a metabolic flush through the brain. And that will not occur. You will not detoxify the brain if you don't have enough melatonin. So what are we doing? We're degrading the stores we built up when we're under this artificial light at night. It's just a toxin. So anyway, I won't get off on a ranty rant, so I'll keep going. Got to get through these slides.
There's a few there.
There's a few there. So this is Dr. John Ott, and I really encourage anyone who's interested or is seeing clients or interested in this subject to get his book, Health and Light. He was Walt Disney's cinematographer. He created time-lapse photography. What he found on the job that light was an issue for the plants that he was trying to film, right? He'd filter out all this light to film the plants, and the plants would die or they wouldn't open. So he basically worked out that without the full spectrum of all the different wavelengths, these plants, the very nature of their rhythms would be affected. So he did about 20 years worth of study on plants and animals, and finally got into schools in the 80s where they changed out all the lighting and made it full spectrum lighting. And they did studies with behavior in children. And he really pioneered the work of full spectrum light. And we're working with an organization in America who work with him. So we're keeping his legacy alive, which is amazing. And that really, really drives me in what I do. So that book, it's only a little book, but anyone interested in getting into the nitty gritties of this, it's a perfect start.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
I often joke, this is not the Sunshine Coast University Hospital. This is like the 1920s. This is how they used to treat TB, rickets, and jaundice and all sorts, right? So why did this change? They actually started to synthesize vitamin D synthetically, right? So get the vitamin D in the food source, you don't need the sun, was the message, which is totally incorrect.
Yeah.
And this is what we used to do, go into the mountains, get our gear off. This was the medicine. This was the doctor's prescription, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we saw, commercialization of products like vitamin D. This was, became less and less the norm.
Yeah. And we're going to come back and talk more about vitamin D next week. But you said one interesting thing there, get their gear off. So, the importance of getting the light all over you too. We'll cover more of that next week.
And this is the reason why, because this is a study done by the Curtin University. And there's a high percentage of southern states deficient in vitamin D during winter, right? Because obviously the UV yield is lower down there, and they don't get, we just live indoors, and the public health message is to stay away from the sun, and there's no public health message about vitamin D. I mentioned to Justin, Sweden, because it's absolutely imperative, pay for 2 tests a year to test their vitamin D of their population, and fortify the food and have cod liver oil supplements and really have it as the number one issue. And this is like Blind Freddy leading down a dark road here. And, saying that when we talk about deficiency, this is like the base level. This is not even optimized levels that we're comparing it to. So I'd hate to say that even in Queensland, we'd have deficiency here too.
Yeah, yeah.
This speaks right to Cyril's work last week. I didn't want to jump in with this, but I found out through Dr. Trevor Marshall, Professor Trevor Marshall in Western Australia, that the Wi-Fi frequencies from your little router there affect the vitamin D receptor. So the receptor that takes up that vitamin D and gets it in the cell and helps regulate all the viruses and bacteria in your cells, it's getting affected by your Wi-Fi. And what are we doing? We're living this stuff, all the time. So if there's anything, that you need to look at is this in terms of your vitamin D as well. So
yeah. And you're welcome to jump in, Cyril, if you've got any comments on, EMF and those frequencies when it comes to this as well, of course.
So I'd recommend
challenge.
Cyril, you going to jump in?
I'm listening and researching. I'm looking places up, finding out the way to make best use of it all. So no, I'm really enjoying it. I've listened to your talk so many times, and it's continuously evolving. It's probably worth telling people where you're going to be talking next, because we've got a couple of things coming up, and that one we've organised for you up in Noosa.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another one I think we can get to. I'll let you carry on.
Yep.
We'll talk about them at the end, absolutely, and put them in the show notes.
So we want to do a little bit of a challenge for everyone who's on here and will see this recording, is download the D-Minder app. So it's D-Minder, and put in like your supplements if you're taking any vitamin D or your food-based stuff that you're eating. And it's going to work out via your latitude. Most of us might be here, or I don't know, North America. Your skin type, your sex, all that profile of data you put in there. And it'll work out what your optimum time of day is to get your vitamin D and how long you need to be in the sun for, right? And you factor in how much gear you've got off or gear you've got on, right? And it'll work it out. So it's a really cool little app to use. You can, it's a desktop version too. And do that and come back next week. We'll talk more about vitamin D.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing also is, if you have a doctor or a functional doctor, it's always good to ask him to test the 1.25 Di-Hydroxy vitamin D, which is the active form that your cells are taking up. 25 OH is the storage. So there's a couple of different elements there. But if you can't find a doctor who will do that for you, or, sometimes they'll charge you X amount or so, they won't do it because you don't have the underlying condition. I do an in-home test through Clinical Nutritionist, and we could also work out through QML as well if you're having problems.
Yeah, that's a really good point there, because doctors won't check this dihydroxy very often. Well, it's usually only a functional medicine practitioner or integrative sort of doctor that will do this. This is not a standard test from your average GP.
100%. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And what Chris said there was download the app and come back next week and tell us some of your results. It'd be an interesting little challenge.
So we'll quickly speed through. I mean, I've obviously made this point, right? This is just a common denominator these days. Too much time on artificial light in EMF, and we're basically not suffering from malnutrition anymore, rather malillumination, right? We solved the malnutrition problem a long time ago. The problem is that even with the best diet, you still need light, because that activates the chemical process in the body to metabolize those raw materials you're putting into it. So we need to rethink our lifestyles in regard to how we're working, how we're living. Next. Right, so circadian rhythms. This is how the body and actually through the brain and the middle part of the brain will take light in and send those particular messages to certain systems. And most importantly, reducing the frequencies and making sure you mitigate blue light at night, you'll start to get that signal to build up melatonin and release melatonin into the body, which is super important. I've got a lot of Australian research in my other slides, but I just thought I'd pull this one out. There's so much stuff the ABC does on like red, near-infrared light. And they're saying this is a massive epidemic that's coming. So basically, any light emissions from 30 to 50 lux is sufficient to delay the timing of a circadian rhythm, suppress the production of melatonin. 30 to 50 lux is not a lot. That's like coming from your average lighting or phone screen or laptop, right? So we basically have such a powerful hormone that we can build up, and we've got at our disposal, and we're basically peeing it down the toilet, right? This is what's happening. Another thing, because of my realm, is the lighting. The lighting, you're getting a bad spectrum, a lot of blue light. You're also getting flicker because of that the AC power. being unstable. So it's flickering millions and millions of times and sending a message to your brain that your eye can't pick up. And that's part of the dementia neurological issues too, Justin, in terms of Parkinson's and dementia, causing a lot of metabolic issues in the brain, and then not detoxifying at night. And we're heading for trouble with that flicker.
And I was talking to Daniel, your business partner over in New Zealand, around monitors, computer monitors, and refresh rate. The higher the refresh rate and the faster the response time is very, very good to reduce eye strain health. But even though a lot of the companies like Asus and a lot of these big computer monitor suppliers are saying it has less blue light, when Daniel's been using his professional meters and measuring them, they've still got a huge amount of blue light in them. So it's still a major problem. And also using software like Flux, or all the any new Apple device has got a way to reduce the blue light from the screen. But Daniel still is saying that there's still too much light coming out of there. Ultimately you've just got to get off the screens.
Or mitigate them.
Yeah, or mitigate them. All right.
That's right. So
we'll talk more about that at the end.
So just to give you guys an idea, this is a chart in terms of comparing what daylight looks like in a spectral chart. So you see how you've got that nice curve, a balanced curve between blue and all the colors and the red. So incandescent was a decent light. They've shelved all those because of energy efficiency and saving the planet from this carbon situation. Fluorescents are terrible spectrally. They'll give you headaches right off the bat. So you see those terrible spiking frequencies that are so incoherent. Halogens aren't as bad. They're very good in terms of a bit more red light. But then we've got the cool white LEDs and the warm white LEDs. Most of your houses will be fitted with these. Way too much blue and green light in particular, with not enough red and near infrared. That's just the bottom line. So Jack Cruz, who I follow for a while, he says, this is your alien sun, right? We're living under an alien sun or an artificial sun. And that's what we're doing. And considering all these biological effects that light has, it's as I said, malillumination. You're only getting a certain narrow band of this wide frequency of colors and frequencies we should be receiving.
Yeah. Yep. And it's also green light. Hey, it's not just blue light. It goes right up to about the 550.
That's right.
nm. So it's actually part of green light is interrupting.
Well, green light is the predominant factor in warm white LEDs. So people get the warm white because it's less harsh on the eye and they feel better under it, but it's just as bad as at night.
Yeah.
So this is what my big question is, right? We've been told we can't have incandescent lighting. Got to get this LED, low power lighting, okay? But there's problems with that. One, you've got the spectral problem, too much blue light, too much flicker, EMF adding dirty power. We mentioned that last week, that dirty power. All these lights are not retrofitted to mitigate that. So it's pumping dirty power into your whole system, and freaking out all your biological systems. So I believe they're not healthy for humans. That's why we're working on these projects to bring better lighting to the average consumer, but also the trade. And like Cyril mentioned, we're going to be talking at the Tiny Homes Festival in Redlands in a couple of months. Cool. We'll be talking at Cindy O'Meara's Nutrition Conference there too, and get both practitioners, the general public, and these people building homes, right? Like we said last week, let's just do it right first time. Yeah. And get you living a more biologically light, human-centric life.
Awesome. Oh, this is about you. This is where people can find you.
This is me. So Diagnostic Health Solutions. I work with a clinical nutritionist, as I mentioned. I specialize in autoimmunity, so we do testing for the vitamin D, the melatonin. So if you want to see how all your hormones pathways are working, how everything's metabolizing, we do all that. But most importantly, if you can't get your doctor to do the vitamin D testing, come to us and we'll get something arranged for you. I do free 20-minute health consultations to look at that side of things. So that's available there. Mm-hmm. And then I created BioLight just as a conduit for the lighting and the light education for the public. So you can go to bio-light.co, and there's a free ebook you can download there, much more in depth to what we talked about today. And maybe people can go and download that and have a gander, have a have a look at it between now and next week when we look at the vitamin D stuff. But my really takeaways are, you've got to get more natural light exposure. Try and get some sunrises, trying to get some noon sunshine for the UV. Like in winter, the actual the window for UV is it's narrowing, right, between 10 and 2. And you've got to get as much of this out in the sun as you possibly can. So try and do that. And also afternoon sun, because when that UV goes away, you get a ton of red and near infrared light. And that on your skin, it's been proven, actually conditions your skin to take in more UV light, right?
Right.
They go hand in hand. Sorry, yeah, download D-Minder. And yeah, just become more aware of what blue light emissions you're exposed to, right? Okay. Yeah. Have your dinner and go, okay, what we're doing, we've got the TV on, we've got 10 downlights on, I've got my reading lamp on, I've got my screen at night. Okay, let's start to work out what you're doing and how we can actually make that better and healthier and changing behaviors and habits. And basically, look, you've got to start treating your melatonin as a king of antioxidants. We talk about redox. We're so fired up about redox. Melatonin should be on the same level, right? You've got to look after this, right? Yeah. It's so critical to your cellular turnover and keeping cells healthy. And and I just, if I can add something before like this winds up or the questions come in, I wanted to mention your skin, the tissues and the actual, is it ectoderm? Cyril, Will talks about this, doesn't he? Like the type of, when your skin is forming in the womb or when you're forming your cellular structures, your skin's actually connected to your gut, right? So your skin...
Yeah, it's to do with the germ layers of the brain.
That's right. Yeah. So the light you get on your skin affects the gut lining, right? Or how quick your gut lining recovers and regenerates. So if all you're getting is blue light and no natural light, I think we've got a microbiome problem here. And I believe that there's a researcher called Dr. Jeff Leach, and you can look him up on YouTube. He did a talk at Vermont in 2017. He works with the Hadza tribe in East Tanzania, right? And he was doing this big project called the American Gut Project. So he's taking everyone's microbiome and seeing, okay, what does the microbiome look like in New York? What does the microbiome look like in Tanzania amongst the natives? So with the natives, the microbiome was awesome, brilliant, because one, they're in the natural environment. They're living on the equator under full spectrum light. They've got no shoes on, they're fully grounded. They've got 1G flip phones, they don't have telecommunications. And they eat natively, right? They eat a lot of fat, a lot of whatever they kill naturally. So their microbiome was tip top, like super, super diverse and healthy. What you find is half of that population actually are the tour guides that get paid in American dollars, right? To take us into their environment. They go and spend those American dollars on some smoking pot, antibiotics, eating crappy food, like whatever they can get with their dollars. He tested their microbiome, and the microbiome was just as diverse and healthy as the natives.
Which is not what you'd expect.
What was the common denominator? We have antibiotics. Some people have antibiotics, don't recover in 6 weeks, have autoimmune disease in 6 months. Right? Yep. The common denominator was how the gut lining was recovering every 24, 48 hours. And your circadian rhythm controls that. We're not looking after this light-dark cycle. We're causing our own issues. Our systems aren't regenerating in the natural cycle of things. So that was so powerful for me and amazing, because Jeff's actually doing this I don't know if the project's going ahead now, but he was going to bring some of the East African Rift Valley natives to New York and put them under our conditions, which I thought was quite cruel. Yeah. I don't think that's happened since COVID, but
they'd probably love it. But
American Gut, it's like coming to America, right?
Yeah.
American Gut Project is Jeff Leach. I just want to end with that. It's the skin, the gut, light, it's all linked. Earthing, EMF. You need to start looking after the surfaces of your body.
Yep.
I've got something to add to that because everybody thinks about melatonin for the evening, don't they? They think, oh, it'll get dark and then it'll release. Yes. But if you haven't been out in the first 34 degrees of the sun, now that sounds a bit technical, right? But let's say the first 2 hours of the day, as the sun comes up, the sun and all the photon released from the sun is quite different to what it is as the sun travels over, across the planet, so to speak, or as we spin. So the first 2 hours or so, first 34 degrees, produces or provides to us precursors. It's almost like the photons of information that the body's looking for. It's picking it up, it's holding on to it, it's allowing the body's chemistry to process things over the day. You make all these precursors and then you release it in the evening. So it's the manufacture of those precursors and the whole support of the hormonal cycles, which in turn are interlocked into the circadian rhythm that Chris is talking about. So you need to get sun, not just like at certain points in the day. Those first 34 degrees are really important, because if you don't get those hours, you're not going to be able to release them in the evening. So you haven't got it to work with. And as Chris said, that shrinks the brain, allows the lymphatic system to flush the cranial areas and basically clean up the brain and the body. And we don't just see light with our eyes. Okay, when you're sitting in front of your TV, if you're there and the skin is being seen at night and the bright lights at night, even if you had a bag over your head, the body's still going to say it's still a white light, a blue light, and it's going to interact. The other thing is, even if you turn the light off at night, if you're drowning in an electric field, right, which is literally the 50 hertz supply in the walls, which reach out 2.5, 3 meters from the room, the body sees that as light. So you can be in the dark and still the body looks at the electric field and says, that's light, and it won't release the melatonin properly. When people finally shield the wall or put themselves in a canopy that shuts down the electric field, they then get REM sleep. They get into proper sleep, excuse me, and then they actually start detoxing and it has huge impacts. So don't just think you see the light. Your body feels electric fields, because visible light and electric fields, they're the same thing. And as soon as we can understand that, you suddenly realize that you're being flooded with all these different energies that are inhibiting the way the body's functioning.
Thank you, Cyril. Thank you, Cyril. That's a great tie-in with your interview last week, and I certainly hope that the audience has got a huge amount of information out of all of that. But we are going to come back again with Chris. Cyril may grace us with his presence, or may not. He's up to you, up to him. He's a busy guy. But we realised that we just had too much information to share it all in one today. So next week we're going to cover more into the circadian rhythms, particularly about the vitamin D deficiency. What are the kind of levels you need there, and what are the impacts of that, and then really go into healthier solutions for light and mitigating light, including glasses like these. So Chris has partnered with a company in New Zealand with Daniel, as we've said, and most of us now are becoming very aware of this, but quality really matters. And so Daniel tests all of the lenses and getting this a high quality product to minimize our blue light. And most of us now are actually wearing these in the daylight and then wearing a more hardcore version at night and so forth. But yeah, so we're talking more on that next week, right, Chris?
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's too much of a big topic to cover it off. I think there was one more slide, Justin, where we had some books, resources.
Yeah, yep, I popped that up right at the end. And
what
I'll do
got some
is
questions.
I will put all of these links, the additional resources, the books, the app name into the show notes, so that people can do that challenge, you know, find out their vitamin D for next week and think about some of the sources of blue light that they're being exposed to during the week. We did have a question from Nicole around with so many people getting their light through glass, is there any options to help improve that, so that the quality of light that we're getting in the daytime through the glass is good quality light?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. I mean, it filters out UV, so it's basically changing the spectrum as well, so we're not getting exactly as nature intended. I know a lot of practitioners who are indoors, like I should not mention his name, they use red light, so they use the red light panels indoors, so actually improving the spectrum because of the filtration of the near infrared and the UV. I think that's a mitigating factor. Opening the windows if you can.
Yeah, open the window.
What
a concept.
I was outdoor. I mean, I've just nipped in here. I was under the canopy. I usually just get my long Ethernet cable and I'm outside, right, in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've
now I don't have to worry about
Ethernet port installed on the back deck so we can run an Ethernet cable. Sit at the back coffee table with lots of light, lots of nature. Fantastic way to work, right?
And all that stuff mitigates this rubbish. You know, I don't need these out there. You're getting all those frequencies like Cyril's talking about different times. You've got a little bit of blue light here, but everything around you is nature. So
yeah,
it's a perfect mitigation.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for your time today, Chris, and thank you for Cyril as well. Excellent wrap up there, Cyril. Great tie-in, understanding that light is frequency, and this whole concept that light is actually a nutrient, and whether we see it or not, we're impacted by it. Whether there's light, oh sorry Megan, I'll just mute you there, but whether there's light or there's electrical fields, our body is interpreting that as light, and it's not going into our deep sleep, it's not releasing melatonin, and that has detrimental effects on our detoxification, our immune system, emotional detox, all of the really, really important things that happen when we sleep. Sleep is the most regenerative, most nourishing, healing time of the day, and to protect your sleep is absolutely critical. Being an ex-shift worker and having a lot of challenges with sleep throughout my life, it's very, very applicable to me, and I'm very excited to be implementing a lot of these technologies, the EMF shielding, the magnetic shielding, the blue blockers, full spectrum lights. I've already got some bulbs and things because we can buy them already. I'll put Chris's link in the show notes for that, and he's very kindly offered a little promo link to get 10% off that as well. Thank you, Chris, for offering that. And yeah, very keen. So I want to ask you one question before we wrap up the show, Chris. Whenever it happens, and hopefully it's no time soon, but when it does happen and you pass on, what impact would you want to have left the people and the world? What's your legacy?
I just think bringing technologies that help. You know, I'm personally likes to help people. You know, I'm always trying to put myself in the void if I can, and just that I was always there to help. Right? If I can, I will. And the more understanding I have of these technologies and how to get better health, I'll always share them. I mean, what's the point of keeping everything to yourself, right? Like, share it out. You know, let it multiply.
Absolutely fantastic. So you've been through life, you've learnt your lessons, and you're helping others avoid the pain that you have. I love your work, Chris. It's a pleasure to work with you. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you so much, Cyril, being on the show today. We're back same time next week, same place. Want to say thank you very much for all of you joining A Good Life show. Thanks for helping us create a healthier and happier world. Your message matters. If you do know extraordinary people that have a vocation of serving humanity, please comment in the Facebook post and in my YouTube notes, because I am looking for extraordinary people to interview and help bring their knowledge to the world. And thank you for helping us fulfill our mission. You can learn more about what I do at theparentpreneur.com as well. A link is down below in the show notes. And please leave us your comments, your questions, and share your love. Give us a like, follow, subscribe, and more importantly, share this information with the people that really know it. There's a lot of people out there that just have no idea about this stuff, and we are trying to get the message out there and create a healthier, happier world. So have a great week, live a good life. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.